I want to start a brief mini-series. You guys know how, for the most of the time, I preach in 4 to 5 week series, and this one's going to be a little bit shorter. We're going to just do about 3 weeks on this topic, because I began to notice back in December, it was a little unnerving, honestly, for me. People were posting about, man, 27 was horrible. I sure hope 2018 is better, I sure hope. And I called it the spirit of Eeyore. Any Winnie the Pooh fans out there? You know who Eeyore is? Eeyore is that donkey that, I sure hope things are going to get better. The spirit of Eeyore has come upon us. And some of us may be looking ahead going, is it going to get any better? And I begin to think about that whole mentality, and I begin to think about how do we approach those questions of life? How do we approach, and again, it's not this fake, false, I'm going to make a resolution and I'm going to keep it, I promise. It's how do I biblically look at what God is doing in my life and address the things that I just may not know how to deal with? How do I look at this next season of my life, whether that's 2018 or whether that's just 18 days? How do I look at this next season of my life and approach it with confidence and approach it with an anticipation that God is God is already doing something that is going to be miraculous in my life? See, I think that's the way we need to look at this next season. Instead of, I hope so. We need to be looking at it and understanding God is already here. God is already active. You say, but what about? And see, that's what happens. The questions come in. Well, Ken, what about this? Or why this? Or what if this? We're going to begin to take these next 3 weeks, and we're going to look at those reasons of doubt and see what the Bible has to say about what do I do? Where is the benefit in those moments? And so we're calling this the benefit of doubt. You ever had a question that you would just like to ask God? I mean, just take about 15 seconds. Take about 15 brainstorm with me for just a minute. If you got one question, just one, to ask God himself, you had 15 seconds with God, and you're going to ask this question. What is that question going to be? Just think about that for just a minute. I think of things like, did Adam really come up with hippopotamus? I mean, really? Is that the hippopotamus? Duck-billed platypus. Where did he come up with that? What weird names? Did he really come up with those on his own? Who did assassinate JFK? And where is Jimmy Hoffa? Yeah, I mean, what question are you going to ask God? The ultimate question of all life. This question has been posed since I was a kid. It's the ultimate question of our entire existence, I believe. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? I have never found anybody that could answer that question. It's the boggler of all existence. God has to know that, right? You ever just say, God, I have all these questions? We all at some time have questioned or had some kind of specific question for God. And the truly amazing thing about those times is that God is okay with that. God is okay with us having these questions. He even tells us that if we lack wisdom, we should ask. If we need knowledge, we should ask. And then he promises to give us some kind of generous answer or information without finding fault or making a big deal of it. James, this is what it says in James chapter 1. It says, if anyone lacks wisdom. Now, I'm going to break this down a little bit because we need to understand what we're truly asking for. If anyone lacks wisdom, Wisdom is not knowledge. Wisdom is, I think we look at this verse and go, God, I need a sure, quick answer. That's not what this verse is saying. He says, if anyone lacks wisdom, wisdom is knowledge applied. Wisdom is not just, God, give me information so that I feel better. Wisdom is actually a catalyst. It takes the knowledge that I have and it acts as a catalyst, but for what? It is a catalyst for action. So when James says, if anybody lacks wisdom, what he is saying is, you have enough knowledge already. What you really need is a little bit of a push, a little bit of a catalyst to take the knowledge that you have and put it into action. Because James is always talking about the action or the energy, the working of our faith. If anyone lacks that, if you're sitting here today and you say, you know what, maybe I just need a little bit of a push, then he says you should ask. You should ask. You should ask God. I think a lot of times what we do is we ask everybody else. We go to this person and go, oh, can you tell me how to handle this? Or we get on Facebook and we put the post on there. What does everybody think about this? Facebook now has this new thing called recommendations, and people do it. Okay, I'm in Dallas. Somebody recommend a restaurant for me, you know? It's like, really? Do you know someone could mess with you so bad in that moment? You know? Yeah, go to Joey's restaurant down on, and you're driving around forever in Dallas, you know. You get on the loop in Dallas, you're stuck, you know. But we do that. We're like, oh, give me a recommendation. Somebody else give me information. And James goes, no. Ask God. Ask God. We go to books. We go to seminars. We go to blogs. We go to all of this different stuff trying to figure out, how am I going to get this situation taken care of? How am I going to get this question answered? And James goes, listen, you probably have the knowledge that you need. You just need a little bit of a catalyst to act on that knowledge. And so you need to go to God and say, hey, God, help me. That's wisdom. He should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to him. But when he asks, when you're asking God, hey, God, can you give me just a little bit of a push? Can you give me just a little bit of an incentive? Can you help me get out there a little bit? He must believe. That's an interesting word to me. Believe what? What do I need to believe right there? And I think a lot of us look at it and go, well, you just need to believe in God. No, that's a given in this verse. That's already understood to be there. If you're going to ask God for something, you probably already have the belief that God is who he says he is. So it's not that, oh, I just need to believe in God. I just need to quote all the little Christian mantras, that say that I'm a believer. It's more than that. That should already be in place. Believe is not believe in God. It's believe in what God says. It's believe in what God does. It's believe in what God orchestrates. See, you may be here today and go, yeah, can I believe in God? I believe that God is who he says he is. I believe that God is almighty. I believe that God is all powerful. I believe that God is all knowing. I believe that God is... Okay, so when God spoke to you and said, do this, did you believe that? You say, well, what do you mean? Did you act on it? What God is orchestrating? Because sometimes we get into circumstances and we see God moving things, we see God putting pieces, and we just go, oh, that's just coincidence. Do we believe that God is actually doing these things? Because again, wisdom is taking the knowledge of who God is, taking the knowledge of what God says, taking the knowledge of what God can do, and saying, God, let's apply this to my life. Let's push me out there a little bit so that I'm actually operating in it, because if I'm asking you to do that, then I have to do it. I have to believe and not doubt. Because he who doubts is like a wave of a sea blown and tossed by the wind. It seems that even with that in mind, there is one question that we all struggle with, though. This is what we're going to talk about this morning, is what do I do, Ken, when I face difficulty? I want to not have doubt. I want to be where God wants me to be. I want to experience everything that God has for me. But this difficulty keeps coming up in my life. These things, these people, these bills, whatever they are, they keep showing up. What do I do? The question is normally just a one-word thing. We go to God and we go, why? Why? Why, God? A single word with some enormous ambiguity and a vast absence of response. Why did that happen? Why am I sick? Why did they die? Why do the wicked prosper? The psalmist actually took that last question in Psalm 73, and he began to address that question. Psalm 73 portrays a discouraged man as he surveys all of the injustice of the world around him. I hear that question all the time from all kinds of different facets. You know, why is this happening in the world? Why is that happening in the world? Why is that guy our president? Why is this going on? Why is that going on? I'm not sure that that's the question. I'm not sure that we're looking at it from the right vantage point, because we're not realizing that there are going to be difficulties in life. Jesus himself said, in this world you will have parties all the time. In this world, you are going to just laugh yourself silly. No, he said, in this world, you will have difficulty. Now, we tend to look at that as a negative. We tend to look at that and go, well, thanks a lot. What do I need you for? But if you begin to look at that and go, okay, if that's going to be the case, what is the benefit of that to me? Because there is one. There actually is one. Of course, we all want a hard, fast answer to the whys. But what if that answer doesn't manifest in the way that we recognize? What if we're still in that why? What happens when that quest for answers takes us deeper? What happens in 2018 or in the next season of life, whatever it may be, that you are looking for all of these answers and you're wondering how they're going to affect you? I looked up the word doubt. It means to consider unlikely, to lack confidence. Now remember, James says, do not doubt. Do not doubt what? Do not doubt who? Do not doubt God. To lack confidence. Do not lose your confidence in God. To consider unlikely. Oh, have you ever been there? Well, God, I know you're all powerful. I know you're all present. I know you're all knowing, but just not sure. It's probably not likely that it's going to work out for me. It says to fear. It says to call truth into question. Ooh, this one's tough. This one's tough. Because we stand up and we say, boy, I believe the word of God is true. But then we call it into question with our actions. That's doubt. Doubt has very little to do with what I know, but doubt is very largely responsible for what I do. See, the doubt doesn't happen here. It happens in what my actions are. I know God is real. I know God is loving. I know God is powerful, wise, generous, compassionate, grace-filled, faith-filled, all of those things. But will I move into new opportunities with Christ this year? Will you move into new places with God this year? Will you allow God to expand your horizons, to strengthen and to lengthen the area of your life and ministry and relationship with Him? You say, well, I believe in God. Right, but do you doubt what he wants to do because of the difficulty that you see? Matthew 21:21 says this. Jesus replied, I tell you the truth. If you have faith and do not doubt, not only, watch this word. If you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you, what's the word? Do. Again, faith is less about what I know and more about what I do. But so many times we get hung up on the difficulty because we're not prepared to handle the difficulty that we know is going to be there. It shocks us. It surprises us. It's like, why, God? What? You didn't tell me about this. Yeah, remember he did. In this world you will have trial, difficulty, struggle. Add the word in there. He says, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to that fig tree, but you can also say to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and it will be done. Done. It's about the action. If you believe, again, he's not talking about a belief that God is God. He's talking about a belief that is active. He's talking about this realization of there is more to what I need to be doing. If you believe, you will receive. This is an interesting word. The word receive here is not receiving a gift. It's not, okay, God, I'm going to believe, I wish, and then I'm going to take this gift. That's not the word here. The word receive is to, you will become part of. It will become a part of you. It's almost like grafting two things together. So if I believe, that means that it's going to become a part of me. That's an action. Whatever you ask for in prayer, you're going to be able to do what you're wanting God to do in your life. Oh, this is good stuff. Guys, come on. As you look at this coming year, as you have set your goals, as you look, hopefully you're looking ahead with some kind of anticipation. Hopefully you have not locked in to a victim mentality that says, well, it is what it's going to be. I do not believe that that's how God designed his family to operate. There's two of us. Wow. Why do we want to settle in to a victimized Christianity? Why would anyone want to become a part of something that is broken beyond repair? But instead, when we're looking at the difficulty and realizing, yeah, I'm going to face difficulty, but God has already told me, God has already said, if you lack wisdom, if you look at that situation and you don't know what to do with it, but you're going to believe in me, if you'll just ask, we're going to get through these difficulties. Victoriously through these difficulties. Is it possible to live life beyond the doubt? As we approach new seasons, different opportunities and challenges and even obstacles, will we approach them as a questioning victim? Or are there things that we can do to live beyond the doubt? Listen, there's always going to be questions. But can we live beyond the doubt? You say again, Ken, I'm not following you. What are you talking about? Can we live beyond that paralyzing moment that says, I believe God is God, but I'm not going to do what he asked me to do. I'm not going to step into the moment that he has given me, even though it may be difficult. 1 Peter chapter 5 says this, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. that he may lift you up in due time. Note the word, lift you which direction? It's not out. The word is not out. We read it as if it's out. Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may get you out of that situation. That's not what he says. There was a time in Jesus' ministry that he tells the disciples, get into the boat, we're going to go over to the other side. And a storm rose up. Short version of this story is this. Jesus did not take the disciples out of the storm. He took the storm out of the disciples. And so many times when we get into these difficulties, when we face these things that we aren't sure what to do with, our prayer is, God, get me out. You need to rearrange your thinking to say, God, lift me up. God, lift me up. Strengthen me in this moment. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Be self-controlled and alert. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith because you know that your brothers throughout the world are undergoing the same kind of suffering. And the grace and the God of all grace. Are you following this? He says, listen, and we're going to talk about those 4 things here real briefly. But he says, listen, in that time when you're facing difficulty, don't throw the covers up over your head and go back to bed. Oh, that sounds nice, huh? He says, don't run away and hide. Don't go to the fetal position in the corner. Don't stand there and cry. He says, look at it from God's point of view. Let him lift you up. We're going to talk about how that happens. And here's the outcome. And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, will himself restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. He will restore you. Restoring means he's going to give back the original luster. He's going to give back the original quality. If you restore a piece of furniture, you are bringing it back to its prominence. See, there are things that we go through in life. There are things that God has in front of us that we see as difficulties. God sees as opportunities. And if we will go through them God's way, he will restore the value of our lives. He will restore the quality of our lives. He will put us back to that original quality and characteristic that he designed us to be. In her book, simply entitled, Why? Author Ann Lotz says, as soon as we stop asking why, as soon as we stop yearning for justice, yearning for God to step in and heal and restore, as soon as we accept the darkness, as soon as we justify suffering in hell, there will be something very wrong with us. We cannot ever stop asking these questions on this side of eternity. It's fundamental to who we are and how God has made us. What we need to know is how to live healthily with these questions. How to live in the tension between the fallen world, full of pain and injustice, but having hope and trust in a good God. The real question is, why does God want, what does God want to tell us by making us ask? What does God want to tell you this morning? Look at the situations that you're facing. Look at the difficulties. Look at some of the things that you're maybe struggling with. And I want you to take a step out and say, God, what are you wanting to tell me? God, what are you wanting to speak into my life? See, we get so caught up in what we think the outcome is going to be that we don't let God speak to the opportunity that's in front of us. This passage in 1 Peter that we read just a moment ago outlines a lifestyle that allows for questions but operates beyond doubt. Peter is dealing with a young church that was facing a ton of difficulty. They were going through things that most of us would not even want to imagine. Situations from all kinds of different sources. And as he wraps up his first letter, he leaves them with some instructions on how to live. Instructions so that in the future, they would be prepared to handle the suffering that they would face. And here's what he tells them. He tells them 4 things. How can you be prepared for difficulty when it comes your way? First thing he tells them is be humble. Be humble. We are to live our lives in an unassuming, unpretentious, respectful manner, totally under the control of a mighty and powerful God. Here's what I've realized. Here's what I've realized about when I think I have to be in control of my life. Things hurt more, devastation hurts more when I think I'm in control and I'm not. You ever been there? You think, man, I got this. I've got this all under control, and then it just blows up. The pain of that, it may not even be the event that actually took place. It's more of the crush of my pride that hurts me. And so when Peter comes to them and says, listen, you're going to be facing some things, but face them humbly. Face them with humility. Loss is always greater when we haven't learned to put things in God's hands. When I have a hold of everything and it goes away from me, that's difficult, that's hard. But if I have given it over to God and I've said, God, you're in control of my relationships, you're in control of my finances, you're in control of my family, you're in control of my occupation, you're in control of my life, and something doesn't go right, it's on him, in a sense. There's less pain in that because I've humbled myself before God and I've said, God, I'm going to allow you to control good and bad. Good and bad. God always knows the time to take us to the next level. God always knows the moments that we need to go through situations in life. But when we struggle for power, the pain will become personal. So as we look ahead and as we anticipate difficulty, realize if I approach it humbly, I can approach it God's way. Second thing he says is cast your cares. This is something that we do usually only when the load gets too heavy. Usually it's only when the load is too much for us to bear that we start to unpile things and take them off of our shoulders. But this, according to Peter, is a continual process. This should be something that I do every day. That I should be unloading my life into God's hands I should be casting my cares into God's hands every day. You say, I'm a grown up. I can handle some things here. You know what? I'm tough. I'm self-made. So, what does that mean? When there is a God who created everything and he keeps a universe spinning, he's created things from nothing, and yet we want to hold on to things that really should be in his control. That doesn't make much sense, does it? But again, we say, I believe in God. Do you believe in him enough to give him everything? Knowing, God, you're all powerful, you're all creative, but you can't handle this. I can. I'm a man. I got this. This is a continual process as we look ahead and realize, you know what, how do I face difficulty in life? How do I face these upcoming moments in life? If I am casting my cares on him continually, then when that care first comes, you ever been carrying something, moving? This is a great example. Moving. I hate moving. I hate moving. And it's not the moving from one place to another. It's not, all of that. It's packing. It's putting it all in a truck. It's trying to get it all. Because I'm this guy that it's like, I see it all in the room, and we got all the boxes packed, and you got everything, and I'm like, okay, how can I get all these boxes in the truck faster than last time? Sorry, my competitiveness kicks in. And I'm like, I'm just going to pick up 7 boxes at a time, and I'm going to carry them. And you know what happens? Somebody walks by and goes, oh, can you take this one too? See, that's what happens so many times in our lives. We're carrying all of this stuff. We're feeling like, man, I can do this. I can carry everything. And something happens, and it's the one more box that comes up on top. Where if we would have been daily going, okay, I'm going to take this box, and I'm going to put it over here in God's care. Oh, I'm going to take this box tomorrow. This is the cares of today. I'm going to move those over here into God's care. Oh, here's the cares of Thursday. I'm going to pick them up, and I'm going to put them in God's. Then on Friday, when that other care comes in, I'm not overwhelmed because I've been casting my cares. I've been putting them in God's hands on a continual basis. Again, the reason that the load gets overwhelming, the reason that when disaster strikes, we break is because we're carrying around yesterday's. We're carrying around last week. Some of you are carrying around last year's stuff. Some of you are carrying around stuff that's older than I am. And you're wondering, why can I not survive? We need to be continually letting go of the cares that the world burdens our lives with because we realize that God is interested in everything about our lives. 1 Corinthians 10 says, God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will provide a way out so that you can stand up under it. Again, notice what happens. He will provide a way out. And right there, most of us put a period in that verse. He will provide a way out. It is the escape hatch. It is the chicken exit off of the biggest roller coaster of your life. None of you have ever taken chicken exits. I understand. You're big and bad. I got it. But that's what we put into this verse. We with one punctuation, we put a chicken exit in there. That when we get to the top of the biggest hill, it's like, okay, God's going to get me out. I'm gone. But you got to finish the verse so that you can stand up under it. God doesn't pull you out. He just lifts it and allows you to be in it. So when we feel that we can't handle the weight, it's probably because we're carrying more baggage than necessary. The next difficulty actually could be that proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. This word cast is interesting to me because of who wrote it. Peter is writing to a young church. Everybody knows Peter's background. We read about him in the Gospels. Simon Peter, he's one of the first disciples that Jesus brings onto his team. And he comes to him and he says, Peter, follow me. But what was Peter doing at that point? Anybody remember what Peter was doing right at that point when Jesus said, follow me? He was what? Oh, he was fishing. He was fishing. Because that's what Peter did. He was a fisherman. And so, I hate to fish. Don't cast stones. I hate it. I just don't like it. But here's what I know about fishing. There's this thing called a cast. And there's some science to this thing. I've been told, I don't know. There's some science to this thing that you just don't throw something. Now that looks like me casting. First time I ever casted a rod, I stuck somebody because it was just like, they're like, just, cast it. And I just kind of went like this, and they were behind me, and it's not a pretty sight. You just don't throw something out there. Can you imagine Peter as a fisherman? Again, he didn't have these great rod and reels. He had these nets. And Peter wasn't just going, oh, let's just throw the net behind me. Peter would place the net into the place on the lake that he wanted and he believed the fish would be. Yes, there was a toss to it, but he was placing it. He wasn't just balling it up and going, man, I hope this works. See, that's what we do with God, though. God, I don't want this. We throw it at him. God, take this. And we're just tossing stuff at God. The word for cast here that Peter uses is to place your cares on him. To place your cares on him. Think about that. Think about how we do this. We get into a difficult situation. We're like, okay, God, here, take this. And off we go. But Peter is saying, no, we bring it to him. And we place it in his hands. And we let him work. We're casting our cares on him. When was the last time you took the moment, you took everything in your life, and you spent time, you went into his presence and said, God, here it is. Here's all of it. Take it. See, as difficulty comes, panic and we're just throwing stuff in God's direction and we're not being in that place where he can then say, okay, I understand your care. Here's what we're going to do. We run off too quickly and we don't allow him to speak back into our lives. We're hoping that he's catching these cares and doing something with them. Third thing, be aware. Peter tells us to be self-controlled, sober, vigilant, alert, and to watch. All of those concepts are found in one verse, verse 8. Verse 8. And I thought about that. I said, why the warning? What is he warning us for? Why do I need to keep my wits about me? Why do I need to keep my attention sharp? I'll tell you why you need to do that. Because the enemy is looking for the next opportunity. The enemy is looking for the next opportunity. The Bible says he is constantly roaming and roaring. Roaming and roaring. Roaming. You know why he's roaring? He's positioning you. He's positioning you. If I hear the roar of a lion over here, I'm going this way. You say, yeah, I'm getting away from the danger. You may not be. He may just be moving you into the next place. He may just be moving you into the next place that he wants you to be. He's constantly roaming and roaring around in your life. And we have to be aware. We have to stay alert. He's trying to produce fear. He's trying to cause destruction. He's trying to be a distraction. Any soldier, any law enforcement officer is trained to keep their eyes open, their heads on a swivel, and their body out of the line of fire. Even on the simplest thing like a traffic stop. On our way to North Carolina, we got about an hour out of Kansas City, and we were in a borrowed vehicle from Victory Ford, and one of the tires was bad, and it blew out on us. The day it was -2. This van was loaded down with stuff. Guess where the jack was? It was under all that. But twice, while we were sitting there waiting for roadside assistance to come, twice, the wonderful Missouri Highway Patrol showed up. And I was watching through the mirror, and I noticed that both of these highway patrolmen approached a white, loaded down minivan. So ominous, so dangerous. They approached it slowly, their hand on their hip, came to the window right here, lightly tapped. We're a family. We're broken down with a tire. We got wedding glass in the back of this van. Come on, man, really? He acted like I was a criminal. What was he doing? He was being aware. In even the simplest of situations, he was being aware. How many of us go into life not afraid, not just panicked, not just being crazy about stuff? I mean, we're not looking for demons in clothes hampers, But how many of us just plow through life without truly being aware that the enemy is looking for an opportunity? We put ourselves in places, we put ourselves with people, we build ourselves these situations where the enemy is just waiting. Never take for granted that the enemy is there to take you out. And you may be thinking, you know what, Ken, I'm no threat. Yeah, neither was I on the side of the road. It was 2 below zero. I got this big park. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right inside if that heater's on. See, I'm not in leadership. Let the enemy go hunt down some big-time evangelists. Let him go mess with missionaries. And see, the truth of the matter is you're human. Sorry if I burst any bubbles. But don't, husbands and wives, don't. I will send you to Justin and Sophia's class if I see you touch each other right now. You're human. You say, yeah, I'm human, big deal. But as a human, you are the crowning glory of God's creation. You are the crowning glory of God's creation. And if there's anything that God created that the enemy wants to distract and destroy, it's you. So be aware. Be aware. Not paranoid, aware. Let's finish this up. Resist the enemy. As you're aware, resist the enemy. Again, here's the picture of resistance. It's not running away screaming. A lot of times, that's what I see from people. It's like, I'm resisting the enemy. Jesus, help me. And we're running. That's not the picture that is painted in the New Testament. When the enemy comes at you with difficulty, stand your ground. Stand your ground. Plant your feet, plant your faith on Jesus Christ. Become immovable, become unshakable. You say, but Ken, really? Is that possible? What about the pain? What about the difficulty? What about the sorrow? What about the confusion? Yep, you're going to feel them. We all feel them. We're going back to that human piece. We're all still human. But those are the human aspects of the difficulty. Your faith must be firmly planted and established on the power of God in that circumstance. That the enemy cannot combat. The enemy cannot come up against that. The thing that most shakes our faith, though, is self-pity. The thing that shakes our faith more than anything else is self-pity. Again, the spirit of Eeyore. Our faith weakens when the enemy convinces us that we are the only ones suffering or have ever suffered. You ever been there? This is only happening to me. There are 7 billion people on the planet, and I'm the only one that this is happening to. I'm the only one that feels this way. I am such a victim. It shatters your faith. It shatters your faith. Peter says that we are able to stand firm because we know. Let's go back to that verse. He says, you're able to stand firm. Why? Because you know that there are other people suffering. You say, well, Ken, is that really an encouragement? That other people are suffering? Remember the prophet Elijah? Elijah goes up 400 to 1. Those were the odds against him. 400 to 1. The enemy came to him through Jezebel and said, Elijah, even if you win, I'm going to kill you. It's a bad day. I thought my blowout tire was bad. Was it 400 to 1 and someone knocking on my door going, hey, the moment you fix that, you're a dead man. So what does Elijah do? 1 Kings 19 says he ran for his life. He ran for his life. But after the greatest victory of his life, 400-1, he's up against 400 prophets of Baal. And he actually calls down fire on wood, on soaked wood. And it not only consumes the wood, it consumes the water, it consumes the rocks. I mean, really? At this point, this guy should be going, okay, who's next? But he runs. 1 Kings 19. When he stops, God says, hey, Elijah, what are you doing here? My prayer for you in 2018 is that you're going to have those moments where God taps you on the shoulders and goes, hey, Bob, what are you doing here? Carlos, what are you doing? What are you doing here? Those are powerful moments. And here's what he said. He replied, I've been very zealous for the Lord God Almighty. The Israelites have rejected your covenant. They've broken down your altars. They put your prophets to death with the sword, and I am the only one left. They're going to kill me too. Now you laugh, but you have done that. You have found your pity party place in your house, and you have stomped your foot at God. Helen Keller said, character cannot be developed in ease and quiet. Only through the experience and trial of suffering can the soul be strengthened, ambition inspired, and success achieved. See, Elijah's at this moment and he's throwing this pity party, and guess what it's doing? It's wrecking his faith. Even after victory. And so we have to come to that place and we have to resist the enemy, not by running away, but by standing in that moment. Standing as an Esther and saying, if I perish, I perish. Standing as 3 Hebrew young men and saying, I can step into this fire because God's going to be there. Standing as a young David facing the biggest battle of his life and saying, is there not a cause? I'd ask the team to come. Only with resistance can we find true faith. And only through resistance are we prepared to go through the circumstance and see the benefit. 2 amazing birds on this planet. 2 amazing birds on this planet. The eagle, of course, most majestic bird that there is. And the turkey. Now, don't tell me you don't love turkey. But they act differently to the threat of a storm. A turkey reacts by running under the barn, hoping that the storm won't come near. But the eagle takes flight. The eagle leaves its nest, and it uses its powerful wings to get itself up above the current of the wind, knowing that those currents are going to carry it higher and higher and higher to where it can soar on its own. So based on your reaction to the storms of life, which are you? I'll let you decide. I'm not even going to. At the moment I say, someone's going to go, man, my pastor called me a turkey. Edgar Allan Poe, couldn't believe this came from this source, but Edgar Allan Poe said this, never to suffer would never to have been blessed. See, there's something about tension. There's something about realizing that God uses even the difficulties. It rains on the just and the unjust. And instead of approaching 2018 trying to avoid every difficulty, can we look and say, God, what are you doing? God, what are you saying to me? God, where are you taking me? God, how are you strengthening me? And almost with an anticipation, say, God, I want you to build my life this year. Instead of becoming the victim of the difficulty, can we become the victor of God's destiny? God does not expect us to go through difficulty unprepared or on our own. Just running away and hiding our heads in the sand isn't the solution. We can be prepared to face each and every difficulty that we come up against. Will it hurt? Will there be times that I grieve? Will there be questions? Will I become frustrated? Yeah. It's the human process. We live in a broken world, church. But we will have a better outcome on the other side if we prepare to face it. If we live in a humble manner, letting God have total control. If we cast all our cares on Him, giving Him everything every day so that we don't carry the unnecessary excess of life. No matter what, God is interested in everything about you. If we stay alert, if we fill our life with the fine-tuning skills of the Spirit of God so that when the storm is heading your way, you're able to recognize it. Put yourself in the cleft of the rock of Christ Jesus. And if we resist the enemy, stand your ground. Stand your ground. Put your faith in God. Armor up. Armor up. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10, Paul says this, finally, be strong in the Lord. Put on the full armor of God and stand. Who's your strength in today? Who are you going to? Where are you going to? Where are you putting your trust? Where are you putting, not your belief, where are you putting your action? Stand firm in the Lord. Let Him be your strength. Stand. Will you do that with me this morning? Will you stand as we enter into a time of worship? You know what? I know some of you are facing difficulties already in this new year. Some of you are wondering what will be out there in this new year. But I want you to take the next few moments and go beyond the doubt. Don't take the action of doubt. Will you take the action of worship? Will you take this moment and just step into the presence of God? Isaiah chapter 6 says, in the year that King Uzziah died, Uzziah was the epitome of worldliness. And in that moment, when all of that was gone, the prophet saw God. My challenge to you over the next few moments is, will you let Uzziah die? Will you let all of those difficulties, all of that concern, will you let it die? Why? Because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, in that moment, the vision of God will become so much clearer. Let's worship Him.